भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति. So we all meet again after a long gap of about 40 days. So the last time the last Saturday we had a class, it was on Bhagavad Gita. So now, this Saturday, that is today, we will be discussing Vedanta as a science of human possibilities. So if you remember, if you recollect, I'll briefly recapitulate what we discussed in the previous class, and then we will focus upon a very important topic, which is the mind and the imperative need in spiritual life to investigate into its true nature, because it is something which connects the body and the prana. We discussed about the five koshas, that is the five levels of our personality. First is Annamay kosha, or the physical gross body, which is run by our five pranas, which form the pranamay sharira or pranamay kosha, and sandwiched between the higher two koshas, which are Vijnanamay kosha and the Anandamay kosha, which are the more subtle levels of our personality, is the Manomay kosha, which is the lower mind. As you all know, we have time and again emphasized this fact that mind, though it can be classified into four distinct uh, capacities or functions, but broadly speaking, we have two uh, classifications based on Vedanta, which says there is a lower mind which is known as Manas and a higher mind which is known as Buddhi. So, being more nearer to the body and the life forces, the vital forces that help us to conduct all the activities, which is Pranamaya Sharira. The Manomaya is intimately connected on one side with our physical body and its forces. So that is why we speak of diseases as psychosomatic. Somatic as in it, the disturbances in our Annamaya kosha and the Pranamaya kosha, the life forces that help us to do all our actions or conduct all our actions. If there is any disturbance in any of these five pranas, we saw how it impacts the functioning of the body. But there is another important aspect, that it not only affects the body, which is somatic, but there is psychosomatic. The diseases or any malfunction that we see is psychosomatic. So every disease has a uh, mental aspect, that is the psycho aspect, and the somatic is purely physical, as in lack of nutrition or maybe some genetic defect which we are born with. So there are so many chronic diseases which can be ascribed to wrong food, wrong nutrition, or wrong discipline of the physical body and also the prana. So any disturbance in the prana, that is why in Raj Yoga we speak of pranayama, which is nothing but controlling the life forces that are responsible for a healthy living, physically as well as mentally. So, so that investigation into the impact mind has on prana and body on the lower side, and the buddhi, and also the Anandamay kosha, which is the repository of all our subtle samskaras, which decide the thoughts that we think, because most of them have their roots in the unconscious. We may be surprised to know that, as Swami Vivekananda points out in his Rajoga, that our conscious mind, or what constitutes our thoughts, the gross mind, the manas, is 1/10 of the our entire mind. 9/10 is in the unconscious. It's only 1% that we see, we perceive, which impacts our life. But there are uh, deep rooted samskaras, which are, you may say, some kind of impressions based on our past actions and thoughts, which are embedded in our Anandamay Kosha, which is the causal body. That is why the name is given Karana Sharira, or the causal body. So, causal body is what throws up thoughts, and when they appear in our mind, we find it overwhelming, because we sometimes think, how can these thoughts come to us when we least need them? All the depressive thoughts, all the anxieties, all the worries, they just come like a bolt from the blue, and you don't realize that the root of all our thoughts are in the unconscious. And most of the, as Swami Vivekananda says, our mind is nothing but a tip of an iceberg. 9/10 is submerged, so we do not know. So, to deal with the mind is not just deal with the conscious mind, it is more to deal with the unconscious mind. So, this topic, the mind and its ways, how to wield the mind, how to handle the manas or the reactive mind, is only 1/10 of our task. The 9/10ths, which require investigation and which is possible only through contemplation, requires the activation of our higher mind, which has a technical term associated with it, buddhi. Buddhi means not just intelligence, because that is how it is translated because of lack of a better word. People think buddhi means, in most of our vernacular languages, when you say a person doesn't have buddhi, what we mean is he doesn't have the intelligence, the secular intelligence which is born out of education. He is not a trained person. So his mind is an untrained one. And obviously, when we say he lacks buddhi, means he lacks worldly wisdom. That is what we mean. But the buddhi which is referred to in Vedanta is something totally different. It is the intuitive capacity, the capacity to, you may say, to put it very crudely, to make choices in life, to decide every moment of our life what we should do or what we ought not to do. That our mind doesn't tell us. The mind just tells us, presents the facts, and based on our immediate experience or the education that we have in our colleges and schools and colleges, we know how to react. So, at the most, a very highly skilled mind, maybe he's a highly qualified surgeon or a doctor or maybe an engineer, he knows how to react to the inputs that he gets, the sights that he sees, the words that he hears, the problems that come before his consciousness. So he handles it in a very informed way based on how educated he is. So education gives him the skills to deal with immediate problems. So that is manas. So in ordinary uh, day-to-day life, it is enough if we have a skilled mind which knows how to earn a living because of the various skills that we have, and also we need to update our skills because things change so fast. The information that is coming to us changes according to the need of the situation we react. So all that intelligence, though in vernacular language, vernacular Indian languages, we call it buddhi. Means he is wise, he knows how to deal with situations, he knows how to deal with his thoughts, the thoughts that appear on his mental horizon, which is the manas. So that is one way of beginning to understand the functioning of the mind. That itself takes a lifetime. How we very often do not know how to deal with our own minds, how to wield it so that it becomes a positive force for our development of our personality. So that is why Vedanta goes deeper into the functioning of the mind. It postulates the need of a higher mind, which it shows that uh, it is known as buddhi, the higher intuition, which is a result of meditation, which is the result of calming down of the thought so that we can observe the thoughts itself. The processes, Swami Vivekananda says in his Raj Yoga, we are a victim of our thoughts. They just come randomly, and all we can do at best, our education teaches us how to handle those thoughts. But still, we find we cannot handle them because sometimes they come and just overwhelm us. So it needs a higher mind to deal with this lower mind or manas. So that is why Vedanta says the importance of the human mind cannot be overrated because it is through our mind which is the window to the entire world. All our actions depend, all our future, our personality, everything, our happiness, knowledge, ignorance, strength, weakness, the ideas of freedom, uh, right mode of living, wrong mode of living, everything depends on the state of our lower mind. But who controls that lower mind? That is the important question. The very fact that Western psychology, no doubt they accept Sigmund Freud and others, they said there is an unconscious, he calls it the unconscious, which is part of the collective unconscious, and we are born with that unconscious. But since they don't believe in transmigration, what is that unconscious, that whole deposit of unconscious that we are born with? Everybody doesn't react in the same way. You see some children when they grow up react differently. Some are by nature very quiet. Some are by nature very restless. No doubt they may be born in the same family. A brother and sister or two brothers may be totally different. So Vedanta explains that by saying that though they inherit the same environment and maybe the same training, they may be going to the same school, they may be trained by the same parents, but they have a huge 9/10 of their mind is in the causal personality or causal body, which is known as Karana Sharira. In this case, it is Anandamay Kosha, which is, we'll come to that later. But now we are dealing with Buddhi. Buddhi is the higher mind, which, when developed, tells us or trains us to choose rightly at the right time in the right situation. So that is a skill which our education doesn't teach us. Education will teach us what to do when we are faced with certain problems. Whether you should do it, why should you do it, we don't ask. As I often mentioned, a very important book uh, by Simon Sinek, who wrote a wonderful book based on all the research had done for nearly 30 years, trying to interview successful people, very successful people, not monetary success or some other success. Successful in the sense they were happy, they were satisfied, they did really good, noble work. They were either builders of institutions for the uh, benefit of humankind. Such people who are very successful and they could sustain their success. He said those people they always began all whatever they thought or whatever they did with a question, why should I do it? So this why, to begin with a why. So he has named that book, Begin with a Why. So before doing anything, we know that it is very often when you study any scripture or any Upanishad, uh, our traditional education system in India was to first discuss the prayojana. There is no study. We don't even study simple arithmetic or mathematics. Any secular or spiritual topic always begins with prayojana, means why. Why should I study this subject? What purpose will it serve in my life? If it doesn't serve any purpose, it is better not to study. So when Sri Ramakrishna was asked to go to school, he asked this question. He said, "Can you give me a very good reason why I should go to school?" Then they said, "Okay, whether if you don't go to school, how will you earn your living?" Because that is what everybody thought. But he said, "I don't need to earn my living because my quest is different. I am not just born to earn a living." And he took a bold decision. So his buddhi was very clear right from childhood. He inherited a very strong sense of why he should do. So none of his elder brother, his father had passed away by that time. So nobody could convince him. Why should he do what they are telling him to do? So this buddhi was fully awakened, like it was in the case of Nachiketa, who at the age of 14 starts questioning his father. Said, "Why are you doing all these rituals? They are, even if they give you some kind of heaven, it is going to be temporary. That is what the scriptures say, and that is what you taught me. And now you are doing it. If it is not worth doing, why are you doing it?" So he gets angry. We know the story. He is very terribly angry with his son, who is just 13 years old. So he started asking questions, and he wanted to know the why, how of what happens after death. So why should I? What is the way out? So the whole Kathopanishad is a result of the questions that Nachiketa asks, and Yama, the king of death himself, gives answers. The way to immortality. If there is immortality, how do I attain it? I want that. I don't want the temporary things. So that is what the buddhi does. Its achievements, all the achievements in the various fields that humankind has achieved till now, it is because of the development of manas, not the buddhi. But all the spiritual attainments or the superiority of man over other beings, especially animals, they also have a mind, which is a highly reactive mind. They have a very strongly developed sixth sense. They know when danger approaches them. So they are having a very good manas, a very good reactive mind in some cases. Of course, they don't have the analytical quality which humankind develop. So that superiority makes them superior to other living beings. But among human beings, there is another superior kind of uh, human beings who are always a creative minority, who are known as spiritual beings, who ask this question why. To ask this question, you have to develop the buddhi. So, from the grossest task that we do, we need education. We need to educate the reactive mind so that when something happens, we know how to react in a very well informed way based on the education that we receive in schools, colleges, and other institutions. So, whatever we want to know, if it is knowledge of uh, anything that helps us to do our daily tasks, we have to do it through our mind. So, that is why it is very much necessary first to develop the manas. So, but deeper than that is to ask the question, why does my mind react in a particular way? When somebody says something, why do I get angry? One gets angry because that is the reaction that his education has trained him to have. So the reaction is if somebody shouts at you, you shout at him. That even animals do. If the dog barks, the other dog also barks. But only human being can restrain himself and say, why should I bark? Because why should I shout at another person just because he shouts? He has developed an intelligence which is a result of development of the buddhi, which tells him, just wait, don't react immediately. Otherwise, you are no better than the monkeys and the donkeys and the dogs on the street. So, a well informed person who has a little bit of buddhi, that is what Vedanta says, that is the fourth possibility, fourth level, when it starts developing as a result of concentration and study of the mind. So, the need to study the lower mind Mind has to be studied, but there is no other instrument. When you study other subjects like physics, chemistry, you have instruments and you have the mind to study it. So the mind can analyze, think, process the data. Many things are there. Your sense organs give you all the knowledge. You do all the experiments in a laboratory. So you have the lower mind can handle all those things, the senses, because they belong to the body. So the sense organs gives you inputs and the lower mind can easily deal with them. And when you are trained, very skillfully trained to deal with them in a very systematic way, people call you educated, call you a very efficient, a skillful person who can handle very difficult tasks, administrative tasks, technical tasks, medical tasks. So the many tasks people are trained. So that is training of the mind, lower mind. But nobody will tell you whether the reaction that you are having, whether it is the right reaction at the right time, whether to get angry or not, uh, uh, whether to react in the way you have done, which may have bad consequences for you. So, who guides the mind? How do you cognize and judge how we should react in different situations? That is what is known as buddhi. So, that buddhi, one of the most important scientific principles guiding the higher mind or enabling the higher mind to function is calmness of the mind. That is what yoga does. Yoga or Raj Yoga or Patanjali's yoga, they say the calmer the mind, the more clear its vision is. When the mind is agitated, when the mind is angry, it can see things, but it can see things colored by that anger, colored by that disturbance. So we are very much biased and we jump or judge people in a hurry. So it requires a calm mind. When it is distracted or bewildered for some reason because of our lack of control of our own emotions, we make wrong judgments. So, even to ask the question why, to make the right choices, we need a calm mind. So, that is why when we say that we are analyzing our lower mind, we need a higher faculty which is known as the buddhi. Now, the higher faculty, to develop that higher faculty, is one of the starting points of our spiritual life. According to yoga, chitta, vritti, nirodha. So, yoga begins, or the final yoga also begins and ends with the calmness of the mind. So, they found this is the fourth faculty of the mind. As you all know, in Western psychology, they have thinking, feeling, and willpower. So we all know thinking enables us to analyze things rationally and do what animals can't do, rationalize and take a well informed decision. Then we have the feeling, we can develop noble feelings, and if we control our feelings, Western psychology says we can control our emotions, then we are balanced. We are well adjusted, are in harmony with other people, with the whole of nature. So that is the second faculty. The third faculty is the willpower. So even if with the good rationalizing capacity and good emotional control, still we need a willpower to convert our noble thoughts into action. So we may have good noble thoughts, but if we don't act upon our thoughts, which requires willpower. So Western psychology says you need to develop the will along with thinking, feeling, and willing. So only three capacities are recognized in Western psychology. But Indian psychology says there's one more psychology which opens the higher aspects of the mind, and that is control of the mind. So when you restrain thoughts, like you restrain the water in a dam through by building a dam, you a structure which will enable the water to be collected and can be used. That force which is generated, that potential energy can be used to create some useful electricity. So the mind is also like that. First, it has to be calmed down. The restless mind or the disturbed mind has to be calmed down. And when it is calmed down, it is then when the higher faculty of the mind opens up, which is known as buddhi. And then we see many things that we would not have observed if the flow of mind was always in a very agitated way. If we were thinking, then we miss out many things and we make mistakes. We take wrong decisions, make wrong choices because we do it in a hurry, either impelled by our emotions or impelled by our thoughts or impelled by our lack of willpower. So those three faculties are important, no doubt. But more than that, Raj Yoga says you have to calm down the mind. Only when the mind is calmed down and it attains a sort of calmness or harmony, then it can see things clearly. It can perceive things clearly. So Vedic philosophers, they consider the mind and they divide it into two levels. One is the lower mind manas and the higher mind buddhi. And they say we use the higher mind to lift the lower mind. So in the Bhagavad Gita, there is a verse which says, Krishna says, lift your mind by your own mind. So it is a bit confusing. How can we lift uh, our hand with our own hand? So that means there are two minds. We lift the lower mind with the higher mind with the help of a discriminative mind, a mind which can uh, make the right choices and decide what to do, what not to do. So many but there is one important thing to be remembered. Whether it is the lower mind or the higher mind, manas or buddhi, it is in according to Vedanta, the mind is also a substance. It is a subtle substance. Just as body is gross and it requires some kind of forces, prana, to act, to do all our regular actions, thinking, eating, digesting, heartbeat, even the pumping of the lungs. So different pranas act upon different parts of the body. And when a person dies, we say the prana has left the body because the same body with all the lungs, heart, and everything doesn't function. So to function, we need prana or life force to animate the body. Similarly, we need the lower mind to control the prana and the body. And we need a higher mind, which is buddhi, to control the mind. So it is gradually we open up new possibilities. That is why our topic itself is Vedanta and the science of human possibilities. So, in a very scientific way, now we understand that mind is a subtle substance. And one basic thumb rule which we discussed it in almost all the classes, was the finer a thing, prana has control over the body. It's not the other way around. Though we talk of pranayama when we breathe, we control our breath, but we control our prana, one of the pranas. And that controls all the different functions of the body. Maybe the blood pressure goes down. If we breathe in a very systematic way, we know there is a harmony. Otherwise, if we breathe when there are emotions, when the mind is disturbed, all uh, the pressure of the blood and everything gets disturbed. The body gets disturbed. Similarly, when the mind is agitated, it can impact our buddhi also on the other side. So the buddhi has always to be strengthened, and buddhi can control the manas, manas can control the prana, prana can control the body. So it is like a king gives instructions to his ministers, the ministers in turn give instructions to the soldiers, and the soldiers carry out what they are told. The king doesn't have to directly do everything himself. Similarly, according to Vedanta, mind is the subtler the level of the human personality, the more control it has over the lower ones. So the subtle controls the gross, not the other way around. So it is definitely, mind is an intermediate between the body and the organs on one hand, and the perceiver or the knowing self. The self is totally distinct. The person who is conscious of everything, the person who is conscious that he has a disturbed mind today, the same person, there is some entity deep within which is known as the Atman or the self, which perceives these changes. Who perceives the changes? There is somebody who has to be the agent, who on one day feels that his manas is weak or is feeling depressed. That means his manas is not in proper shape or proper uh, state of mind. And on other days, he feels elated. He feels, today I'm able to control my lower emotions and all the thoughts very easily because I have caught hold or I have developed my buddhi to such an extent. I decide what I should think. Now, as I told you, when the buddhi develops, we have to go to the next level, which is Anandamay Kosha, where, as I said, 9/10 of our subtle thought impressions are stored. They are like something like the software or the data which is hidden in the computer. Whenever you want, you can access that data, but normally it is hidden. It is stored as subtle impressions. So the Anandamay Kosha or the higher, that is a higher stage where you can even control the buddhi or instruct the buddhi to tell the mind which particular thoughts should be thought by you. And you be a master of your mind rather than the mind being a master of yourself. So that is the whole goal that Vedanta says. But unfortunately, just as the body is made of the nutrition that we take, the food that we take, our mind is also not as independent as we think. It is fed the food. Now, suppose you have no regulated, you have not regulated your food habits, and then the body develops certain diseases. You can't reverse it. You have been indulging in many things, foods which are not nutritious, which are bad, and then it impacts the body. Similarly, the inputs that we give through the sense organs to the mind and the thoughts that we think carelessly, they destroy the functioning of the mind. So, for example, if you watch very highly emotional movies and violent movies, and then in the initial stages you think they are not impacting you. So slowly, what happens is the manas, since they are bombarded by these thoughts, the buddhi finds it difficult. Even when you don't want those thoughts, because they have been fed, the mind doesn't function as you want it to function. Just as the body, if it has been fed with stuff that has destroyed or damaged its functioning, then no matter, you need to take some remedial measures to cure yourself of all the food that you have taken. Similarly, the mind also, the inputs that you give. So buddhi can do very little. It knows that this is not what I should do. But then the lower mind rebels because it says, you have been feeding me with thoughts of anger all the time. You have been watching, uh, giving lot of input. And then suddenly when situation comes, you succumb to the lower mind and then you just react and then you repent that I should not have been angry. But then if you are thinking angry thoughts, you're getting angry at the least pretext. And training your mind in a particular way, then it is going to react in a particular way. So, buddhi has a role, the higher mind has a role, and it can just suggest to the lower mind that don't expose yourself to certain things which can harm you later. Because though you may have control, it can overwhelm you. Because the every thought that you think, every right or wrong thought that you think does not disappear. It leaves a trace. That is why Swami Vivekananda said What we are is a result of our habits, not only physical habits, but mental habits, our thinking habits. So, thinking habits leave a large number of impressions, not only in this life, we carry it over from life to life. We'll come to that later. So, the Anandamay Kosha is what you inherit from your previous birth. So, you may think, I have been very careful in this life, I have not indulged in many things, but where are these strange thoughts coming? As I said, 9/10 of our mind are in the causal state. They are hidden impressions which we have inherited, of which we have no knowledge. So those 9/10 till it is cleared, till that backlog is cleared, till they are countered with the process, with a process known as yoga. Uh, so also on the other side, as you see, when you suffer from a particular uh, issue with the body, then the doctor tells you now you avoid this food for so many days, you avoid oils, you avoid this, then you reverse the whole process. And then if you follow the right principles of nutrition, you can remedy the issue that you are facing in the body. Similarly, in the mind, Patanjali says through a process known as Pratipaksha Bhavana, that is having counter thoughts. Now, there are many ways to do it. That is the whole idea of spiritual practice. Why should we do spiritual practice? Is to counter the collective thoughts which now and then come to the surface. We do not know. Many are, as I said, embedded in our deep in our consciousness, which is the Karana Sharira or the Anandamay Kosha, as it is described in the Taittiriya Upanishad. So they seem to bubble up. The thoughts come when you least expect them. Then you don't know what to do. So every time it comes, as the Buddhists do, you have to just observe them. The Buddhists don't try to counter them. They do what is known as mindfulness meditation or awareness meditation. That is one way to deal with these thoughts. The Buddhists believe, they don't believe in counter thoughts. They just say it is a long process but more easy. So they say let the thoughts come, let them come, allow them to come, but just be an observer. So all the meditations that Buddhists do, they deal the mind in a very passive way. And it is very easy because to do japa, uh, to produce counter thoughts require tremendous willpower. So most of the people find sadhana or upasana very difficult because they have to do a positive, they have to take some positive action and counter every thought with the positive thought. What is japa? Japa is nothing but repeating the holy name of God. It's not just, it's a very scientific way of preventing thoughts from coming to the surface and destroying them at the very root before even they have a chance. It's like there are seeds which have been planted in the soil, and if you don't want the weeds to grow, then you should not provide them with water. Or the best thing is burn them. So Patanjali says it is known as Dagda Bija. The seeds are there. You don't know what sprouts will come out of it. And you have 90%, as I said, of our mind is in the unconscious. And they are all waiting to sprout at the first available opportunity. And so if you want to make sure, Patanjali says you perform Kriya Yoga, or it is also known as sadhana, upasana, through the power of the holy name, through power of prayer, which is nothing but countering those thoughts. And before they are able to prop their heads up, before they come to the conscious plane, that is manas level, when we are overwhelmed, when we suddenly find the thoughts of fear, thoughts of anger, thoughts of panic, and the thoughts of depression, we don't want to get depressed, but we find that these thoughts are just bubbling up. After some time, it is sometimes we find it very strange. We are not thinking of any we are not thinking anxious thoughts. We are not worried about anything. Everything is going on smoothly. But sitting quietly, we have a habit of allowing those thoughts to come. So Buddhists say, according to the Buddhistic meditation, what they do is but that requires a lot of patience. That's why you'll find most of the Buddhist sadhana, they're very long, they're years and years together. They just observe their thoughts, allow the thoughts to come up, and don't react to them. Don't allow any kind of reaction. Then it is very scientific. It comes up and then it slowly subsides and then it vanishes. So one by one, they play the waiting game and they keep on doing what is known as vipassana, to just see with intense awareness and watch as if you are watching a movie, your own mind. That is a more easier way, but it is a very long way. But Hinduism or Patanjali's yoga says there is a shorter way where you go to the root and try to destroy the very seeds itself, so you don't allow those thoughts to come. It may be difficult, but it is quick. So we have to choose. So this dealing with the lower mind is only possible when you deal with the Anandamaya kosha. So that is done by buddhi. So buddhi is nothing but uh, a kind of prayer or uh, a instrument, a light which is a light of infinite power. It is compared. That's why when you meditate, you always meditate in the heart in the form of a light. That is one of the most popular. Even if you meditate on an object or a form, who is your Ishta, a form that you like, the God whom you like. Even if you find in Buddhism, they call it the lotus of the heart. Lotus has nothing to do with the physical lotus, but it is a space within our consciousness, the heart, where a bright light is imagined, and that light is not the physical light. It is the light of knowledge which destroys all the ignorance, all the misconceptions that arise now and then. Fear, anger, all these are misconceptions. We don't see things as they are. We color it with different emotions. There are hundreds of emotions, and if we see things as they are, as the Buddhists do, they say these emotions uh, lose their hold upon you. That is one way. Whereas Patanjali says there is a faster and a quicker way where you have the opposite emotion. It is known as Pratipaksha Bhavana. Bhavana means feeling. Pratipaksha means counter feeling. So you just counter it with a very positive thought. It's like inducing positive thoughts on a mind which is always throwing up negative thoughts. So the mind has a tendency, because of the old samskaras, to throw up negative thoughts. You have to counter it very patiently using a process known as yoga. Patanjali's yoga is nothing but that. So when you make your mind calm, when you uh, the vrittis means the thought waves are subdued, then you use the light the light in the heart, or the light which is the light of knowledge. We use that to remove all the darkness that envelops us now and then. All the fears, all the anxieties, all the different negative thoughts is because of ignorance, because of a wrong view of the world. So the lower mind is always giving us. That is why in Vedanta it is also known as Maya. Maya means something, it's a virtual reality which the mind is always creating. The same reality, if there are two people, they see different things. Suppose a person is full of, has watched ghost movies. You ask that person to go in the dark, anything trembling, he will think there is a ghost. Whereas the other person will go fearlessly. He'll go fearlessly because his mind is conditioned in that way. So the reaction is not the same. It changes depending on what the state of your mind is. So that is what is buddhi, that is the function of buddhi, to see things as clearly and perceive things as clearly as possible, so that we don't jump into any conclusion. It requires lot of practice, because our minds are always, no matter how much we uh, practice, the mind always has a tendency to show things depending on our past samskaras. So that's why Swami Vivekananda used to say, be very careful what you think, because all those things are not going to be lost. They will go deep into your consciousness, and those thoughts will come when you least expect it. So, and these things, it is as difficult as handling heat. Suppose there is a fire or something has broken and the fire has spread. You find it so difficult to douse it. So also these thoughts, they are also of the nature of matter. Just as you can't control matter when it goes, see, for example, it spreads some explosive or anything. But similarly, the mind also is subtle matter. That is another idea of will. It's the purest type of matter. It is also conditioned by external environment. Even it is affected by other thoughts. Because after all, the mind is our vibrations. If you see, all the material particles are also vibrations. At a more fundamental level, at the quantum level, if you see, the distinction between matter and energy practically vanishes. You don't know when a thing is a particle or a packet of energy or some vibration. So if you go, even science shows that what you call as matter, at a very, very deeply subtle level, or maybe a quantum level, if you see, they say it is very difficult to tell whether it is a particle or a packet of energy. Energy and particles, matter get converted into each other. That is how what modern physics has discovered. So they are at a loss to know that what affects this process or what causes this phenomena where the moment you see the particle, it vanishes, it becomes converted into energy. So this search into the real nature of matter has confused scientists, because they really do not know at what point or at what stage it is matter and at what stage it gets converted into energy. That uh, conversion between energy and matter is going on all the time. That shows that whatever we see as gross can be converted into subtle things. The subtle can suddenly become condensed to become gross. So also in our mind, the gross mind can, as a result of meditation, become a fine mind with which we control. But at the same time, it has a tendency, depending on the other thoughts, just as heat outside the room will slowly percolate and heat everything inside the room, it has a tendency to spread. So also, according to Vedanta, when you are in a room full of disturbed minds, there is a high degree of possibility or chance that you will be disturbed. That is why they say we should have satsanga. Satsanga means go to a place where at least if there are no disturbing thoughts, there is nobody, there is some peace. That is why Sri Ramakrishna's gospel, you will find he is stressing nirjan was so much. Just go into solitude, where at least you are not a victim of negative thoughts surrounding you. So you go away, not because you are going away, we are all carrying our minds, disturbed minds, wherever we go. So just solitude will not ensure that your mind will be calm, because you are going with the same mind which was already disturbed. The only positive takeaway from this idea of nirjanvas or solitude is you are not adding further turbulence to your already turbulent mind. So there is a fair amount, a good chance that in a quiet place, that is why people resort, all the holy places, they are on the top of the hill where very few people are able to access. You see, the Jains, for example, they protested a lot. Girnar, it was so difficult. You have to climb 10,000 steps to climb the hill. So they felt that if we have ropeways and lifts and other things, then a lot of crowds will go. And they say all our sanctity, all our temples, they have more than 1,000 temples in Palitana, where each one of these, it's so quiet that the moment you go, the most disturbed mind will be quiet. First of all, it is at a height. There's no, people do not crowd because it's not easy to climb. So only the fit can go on the top. So they protested a lot. Even today, they are protesting that you can't have a ropeway there. Then it will become a picnic spot. That is what happens to most of our Hindu temples. Mostly they are social. I mean, there is so much of commotion. The place of worship, any place of worship or any place of serious spiritual practice should be quiet. So solitude is something which is so rare. So if we go and carry our whole world to the place of worship, then you are not only disturbing yourself, your own mind, but you are disturbing others who have come for some peace. That is why people prefer Buddhist, because that is the basic principle of Buddhism, that you have to watch your mind. If somebody comes and disturbs you, you whether you will watch your own mind, you will watch the other minds which are sending bombing your consciousness with their thoughts. It can easily be felt. Those who are very sensitive, Holy Mother once said that she could immediately feel from a distance that a very disturbed person is coming. Of course, she had the capacity to calm him down. So for her, she was always surrounded by such crazy people. And she had the capacity, she had enough calmness to just tolerate all of them. But most of us don't have, because we are struggling. When one is struggling to calm down the mind, when even the presence, even if they need not talk, their just presence or their uh, uh, if you are surrounded by such people, it causes. Patanjali says that in his Rajoga. The thoughts, that is why the Vedanta says, just as heat is transmitted from, if you are go very near a fire, naturally you can't avoid the warmth that you get from the fire. You can't insulate yourself. Similarly with the thoughts. So this particular uh, uh, matter, this particular idea is there, that everything that is in Prakriti, because mind is also Prakriti, all except the pure consciousness or pure awareness is Prakriti. So anything in Prakriti is subject to change, is subject to be transferred from one place to another. In gross, it happens fast. In the subtle, we don't know its impact unless we our minds are sensitive. Because our minds are not sensitive, we don't mind, and we are used to chaos. We are used to noise. We are used to disturbed minds because our minds are disturbed. So, a already disturbed mind, a little disturbance from some other people does not impact him. It's only when your minds become sensitive. Holy Mother once said, when she was meditating, somebody dropped a small pin. Can you imagine? He dropped a slightly, maybe it's a needle or something, which made some sound. Normally, we are used to even vessels and glasses and everything falling down, and we somehow manage. There's so much of noise, especially in a busy place. There's so much of shouting, and our minds are so gross that it has got used to it. At least we convince ourselves that we have to get used to this noise because that is the noise which we have created. So, no doubt, if we create a situation where there is always some kind of noise, then we get used to it, and then the minds are no longer sensitive. But Holy Mother said that day when I was in deep meditation, in that state, somebody dropped a big pin, and he says, I felt as if uh, a big something huge had fallen, and uh, it caused so much of disturbance in the mind. So then it is only in a sensitive mind that you find uh, this the least disturbance painful. So that happens at a much later stage. Of course, it is not so easy. We are not so easily disturbed. So this silence, this calming down of the mind is you may say it is a preparatory discipline for entering spiritual life or a life of meditation. That's why they say when you explore all the possibilities, you exhaust all the physical possibilities that are possible with your body. Maybe you run a mile in less than 4 minutes. That is the limit of physical capacity that a mind can, that a body can have. Then you do pranayama and do all sorts of yoga, and you even control your body, your physique and everything. That is one that are those are the possibilities. Vedanta doesn't deny them. It is necessary. It's equally necessary to have control of your body, control of your prana, so that you are healthy most of the time. And then we go to higher. You don't have a very disturbed mind, so that you can handle the small disturbances that you encounter. That is a reasonable amount of manas, which stops the reactive mind from reacting. So manas is known as the reactive mind. So if it is calm and quiet, to some extent you can somehow manage, because it doesn't react. It has been told not to react to everything that is happening around you. So such people are now ready to develop the buddhi. They don't get disturbed because somebody says something or somebody does something. At least they are in control, fair degree of control of the reactive mind. So that is how Vedanta says you explore more and more possibilities. Only when you explore the possibilities of the last two stages of human personality, that is when Vedanta becomes a true science, a science of exploring all the higher possibilities. So, we'll conclude now. The five organs of perception and action. We have discussed the Annamaya Kosha in great detail. We have also discussed the different pranamaya shariras, or the five pranas which impact. So, when we progressively explore the possibilities of developing the Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha. Annamaya Kosha gives us a very strong, disciplined body to conduct, to do our sadhana or upasana. And then at a higher level, we control the prana, which at least removes our physical restlessness, if not the mental restlessness. Physically, we are not fidgety. You can see some people always shaking their legs, and asana is meant for that. Asana, the main purpose of asanas is not good health, though it may lead to good health. Asanas were designed to give some kind of physical stability, so that the physical body and the pranas can be under some kind of they come to a stable state. Sthiram Sukham Asanam, that which gives you sthirata or steadiness, physical steadiness. I am not talking of the mental steadiness. Physically, if we are steady, it is just one third of the journey. Swami Vivekananda used to say, one third of our problems are physical problems. Especially for Indians, he was very clear. He said, most of your problems are not spiritual problems. One third are because you don't have a steady body. So the steadiness of the body through asanas and pranayama is what is the first possibility that we explore. Then we come to the second possibility, more or less controlling the wild thoughts and the wild anxieties, fears, and the reactive mind. Make it less reactive. It cannot be totally non reactive, because that is how we have trained it. So the body will react, the mind will react to external circumstances, but we can reduce it, minimize the reaction. Then, when that calmness comes, then begins control of the uh, buddhi, or control of the higher mind. We develop more possibilities, explore more possibilities, and then finally we come to the uh, deal with the real problem, which is the karana sharira, where we try to find out what are, the 9/10 of our mind, as I said, is the impressions. We try to see what all things are there in the attic. In the attic, we just push things in the attic. House is very clear, but we don't even dare to open the attic, because once you open it, then you have to clear it. So it's better we close it. That is what happens. Our Anandamaya Kosha, or the Karana Sharira, right now it is not disturbing us. So we are under the impression that we are fine. But the moment we open, like the Pandora's box, so many samskaras come out, and then we find it difficult to deal. So sadhana helps us to now and then just enter into that attic, enter into the causal uh, personality, clear whatever disturbing things are there, the old samskaras, So that is the goal of sadhana. So if there are some questions, are there any questions? No, just see the chat. Yeah, any questions? Time is over almost, isn't it? 5:30. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Of the yoga. Yeah. Hmm. No, ego is another aspect of the mind. It's not the ego. So that is what I wanted to emphasize, that Buddhist meditation, they first idea is they get rid of their ego. Not so easy, but they have to watch it like a sakshi. Witness doesn't bring in the ego. You have to be neutral. Ego comes when you react to your mind. Now, suppose somebody says something. Buddha's life, if you see, uh, he used to practice what he preached. His whole meditation, his whole life, every moment of his life was a. Uh, so he used to go to beg, as you know, Buddhist monks used to beg. Buddha himself went to beg. So in some houses he would be scolded. They will just say, "You are such a young man. Why do you beg? Can you not earn some money and live your life?" So the disciples used to get agitated, irritated, but Buddha never reacted to that because he was practicing that awareness. If the ego is there, he will react. So if you don't react, if you are a sakshi, that means that ego is not there. If the ego is there, then immediately when bad thoughts come, you feel panicky, or bad words come from someone, you just have there is anger developing inside and you want to just reply to him. So all these things happen if only if ego is there. So meditation, when you say Buddhists meditate, when they meditate in rightly, if they do the right kind of awareness meditation, then the ego is not there. So there is no reaction actually. If you have to watch something, if you watch a movie, for example, if there are two people fighting, it doesn't affect you. Your ego will get involved because you are seeing those live people. But you are a witness when you see the movie, if you are not emotionally attached to that movie scene. If you are watching it just for pleasure, then you see, oh, it's a movie. Now somebody will come, somebody will kill. It doesn't affect you because it's just on the screen. So that is what they propose to do. That is what they say, that ego is not there. They just are the witness of what they see. But it is a very difficult thing also. It may look easy, but it's not possible. When crazy people, Holy Mother used to practice it. It came naturally to her because she was her surroundings, the people, everything was difficult. There was poverty, there was crazy people, there were difficult people. The people came with so much of horrible problems, self-created problems, domestic problems, quarrels, and a lot of things. And she never lost her peace of mind because she had, that is the basic minimum. Buddhist meditation is not so easy, but sakshi, to be a witness, is the first stage. Then if you want faster progress, yoga says you have to sit seriously in a corner and deal with the mind before even it affects you. So there is no ego involved in that. No, control of the ego comes automatically. You can't control the ego 100%. If you react, then the ego has propped up. So you have to even control the ego every moment. Buddha, when he was scolded, Ananda got terribly upset. He said, these householders, if they don't want to give you food, they can simply say, no, why are they abusing you? So he used to get angry and try to defend his master. They felt bad. But he said, see, I don't accept what they are saying. So what is the problem? If I accept, if my ego accepts the curses or the words, I just treat them in a very neutral way. Same thing with praises. If somebody praised Buddha, also he did not care. Somebody praised him. Oh, you have such wonderful renunciation. Then you know what Buddha said? He said, no, no, I bow down to you. He bowed down to Buddha, saying, you have renounced the world, such a wonderful person, I respect you. And he said, no, in fact, I should, because I have renounced the lower things for the higher things. But unfortunately, you have renounced nirvana and absorb and embraced the world. So you are a greater renouncer. You have renounced a greater thing for the smaller thing. You know, somebody wants, says, I have renounced gold for some cabbages and some vegetables. So he has done the real renunciation because he has renounced the gold. Whereas Buddha says, you have renounced nirvana itself, which is the greatest thing. So who is greater? You are greater. So there was no ego.
So Swamiji, as Mr. Patanjali said that if you do meditation, even the negative thoughts will not come. Like you can.
No, they will come. They will come. They will come. They will come in both the cases.
Right.
When you are dealing with the mind, see, as I told you, we do not know how many negative things have gone and become samskaras. Causal body is only like an attic. When you open, you know how many things are to be disposed and how many good things are there. There may be good things also. I'm not saying every time you will have bad thoughts. That is only when you open. But our problem is we don't want to open. We are happy with our minds. We don't want to open. Let the attic, just close it. It's very convenient, you know. The attic may be full. You see, if you open, there is a problem. But sooner or later you have to open. That is a problem. Because otherwise, if too much of, then you can't sleep peacefully. You know, some houses, they know there's a lot of rubbish inside, which I don't need. One day you feel very good and energetic. Okay, let me today clean. Then you understand, oh my God, so many things. No, japa is like cleaning the attic. Yes, that is exactly. Japa, you have to counter your thoughts. That is like cleaning the attic. That's why it is difficult. We don't want to do. We don't want, we just think that let it be. Now it is not disturbing us. So let the attic have whatever it is. It's just a crude example, but that is how. Yeah, so can we conclude now? Huh? Any question, Gaurav?
No, the sadhana part and that awareness part, Lord Buddha.
Yeah.
Can those be like synonymous? Like
Oh, yes, yes. They are synonymous. Yeah, yeah. In fact, Bhuteshanji Maharaj used to always advise brahmacharis in the beginning to follow the book Miracle of Mindfulness by Thich Thich Nhat. That's a Vietnamese monk. So he says, even before you, if because everybody's question was when we were brahmacharis, their question, most of the questions they asked Maharaj was, oh, our mind is very restless. So how to deal with it? He said, don't worry. You first forget what you are doing. You do meditation, but if it doesn't work, you just continue. But side by side, you practice this. That is his advice. So in Vedanta, that is the preliminary stage, you know, to develop the witness, Sakshi Bhava it is. They say Vipassana means to see clearly with awareness. So you do everything with awareness. Miracle of Mindfulness, if you see the book, he says, my meditation is very simple. Do what you are doing at present with full awareness. See, for example, you are brushing your teeth. We brush our teeth and think other things. But for according to this thing, you should just think of brushing your teeth alone. If you are washing a cup, if another thought comes, it's difficult. It's not easy. While we are washing, we do many things mechanically, isn't it? Washing the cup. And we are thinking, oh, we'll be late. I have to catch this train. We are multitasking. What it means is don't multitask. when with this model, when you first concentrate on the task at hand, when you don't multitask, then we have vipassana or we have mindfulness. And then when that mindfulness develops, then you can go and do higher types of meditation, which are quicker, in the sense which are more effective. Because this single vipassana, Buddhist monks, that is why they have to live in a monastery. Sometimes Tibetan monks, if you go to that, they don't see people for 15, 20 years. Their food is kept outside. So you can imagine 20 years you don't see that kind of meditation they do. But that is a very slow process. Yeah.
So we have seen that in the introductory text of Vedanta, it has been mentioned that for the mind to be able to concentrate and meditate, it needs a certain extent of mental purity.
Yes. Yama and Niyama. Yes. In Patanjali, in Vedanta, it is Shat Sampatti. Yes. Different moral qualities that you have to practice. Forgiveness. Because if you are always quarreling with people, always having strong likes and dislikes, so the idea behind all this Shat Sampatti, or in Patanjali's yoga, they call it Yama and Niyama. So all these qualities, if you practice, it helps you to calm down the mind before you sit for meditation. They are preparations. Yes, it is there.
It seems pretty much that Vedanta stresses a lot on the purity of mind.
Every religion, before they presuppose, that is why the 10 commandments in Judaism, in Christianity also, Jesus says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." That means, even to qualify to do higher practices, you have to. They presuppose that you have some basic kind of physical purity and discipline. Purity means what? You have a kind of um, disciplined life. That's all. Pure life means a disciplined life, not giving. Not living according to your desires.
The concept of Nishkama Karma, which has been said by Sri Krishna in Gita and also preached in our times by Swamiji. So I think Nishkama Karma does help a lot in attaining that initial purity of the Lord.
Nishkama karma is exactly the same. Mindfulness and Buddhistic meditation, Nishkama karma. Nishkama means you don't do anything forced by any particular desire. You just do it because it's your duty. That is what Sri Krishna advises Arjuna. He says, just you can't give up activity. You just go on doing that activity. When you do it with a steady mind and with some kind of dispassion or calmness, then you can sit and meditate. That's the idea. Okay, so we'll take Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.